Hello, and thank you for joining Slate Safety. I'm Joe, and today I'll be walking you through the SlateSafety Web application. We're starting out here on the login page. Only registered users can log in, so make sure you have received an email invitation from SlateSafety and have completed the steps there to create your account. If you encounter any issues of setting up your account, please reach out to our support team and we can quickly fix that for you. Before we dive in, there are a few different roles within the portal that I'd like to go over first. Each role has a different purpose and functionality. If you're watching this video, then you're most likely an admin. Admins have the highest amount of permissions and full access to all data and settings for your organization. They can create and edit other users, groups, loadouts, and notification contacts. In the second highest role are group leaders. Group leaders only have read-only access to the data within their assigned groups. They have read-only access to all loadouts and may assign loadouts and bans to any user within their groups. More limited permission roles include users and device managers. Users, who have the least amount of permission, will most likely not be logging into the platform. If they'd like to log in, they only have access to their own personal data. They can see what bans and loadout they are assigned, but may not see other bands, loadouts, groups, or users. This is the default access of every new user unless they are promoted to a higher role. Device managers have the same privileges as users, but they can also assign and unassigned bans to any other user in your organization. Alright, now let's log in. When you log into the portal, you will first see the live page. As you can see, it's displaying the active bans as cards. We'll come back to this page and explain in more detail later on. There are 4 pages you can toggle between, including Live, History, Organization, and Exports. We'll start with the Organization page first. The Organization page is where administrators can configure loadouts, create groups and users, assign bans, adjust settings, and more. There are multiple tabs within the Organization page. We'll start with the Users tab. Within this tab, you can view and add users, manage their loadouts, assign or unassign bans, and add or remove them to groups. You'll see we already have users populated. You can select all users or particular users of your choosing on the left. View and update profiles on the right. You can also see the last time each band was used. When users are selected, you'll be able to perform batch actions. This is useful for assigning or unassigning multiple users at once. For instance, you can select multiple users and change them all to a different loadout. You can also view more information about a user's loadout and bans by hovering over them. To create a new user, click the green New User button on the right. For example, we'll add Jane Smith as a new user for our team. You can see here that the default role is User. In this instance, we want Jane to be a group leader, so we'll select Group Leader. Below is the user physiology section. Although it can help with accuracy for some of our more personalized metrics, this physiology section is optional. If the user you're creating won't be wearing a band, you can definitely skip this section. Overall, you should know that the band V2 is not a medical device, so this information is fine to be a general estimation. Underneath the physiology section, you'll see groups. Since Jane will be a group leader, we will need to add her to the group she's in charge of in order for her to perform her duties. But we can also leave this blank for now, and we can make sure Jane gets assigned to the proper group later on. For Jane to access her account, we'll put her email here so she'll receive a welcome email to her inbox. She'll be able to then click a link and set up her account. Now that we hit submit, we'll be able to see Jane in our users tab. If there were thousands of users here, then we could use this filtered search bar to find her. If Jane will be using a band, you can quickly go over to the band ID column and click the plus button to assign her one. We'll assign her one to show what that looks like. If you're not sure which band a user will be wearing yet, you can assign bands at any point, so there's no need to know right now. Now we'll go to the Groups tab and create a group. A group is a segment within your organization that you can use to sort and filter bands and is particularly useful if your organization has multiple work sites. You can see we have some groups pre-populated here. To create a group, click the green New Group button on the right side of the page. Now you can view and edit your new group in the list. Now we can look at the Loadouts tab. On the Loadouts tab, you can view the current loadouts, edit them, or delete them. A loadout is a configurable template for band v2s. Each organization comes with one default loadout that all new users are assigned to by default when they are created. You can also create as many new loadouts as you want. You can have one loadout for the entire organization, or you can have one loadout per user, or anything in between. For this tutorial, let's create a new loadout. To do that, we have to select the green New Loadout button in the right corner. We're naming our new loadout Maintenance Crew. The description is optional, so we can just leave it blank, or we can use it to help define the loadout. Below the name and description, you can see the Biometric Notification Threshold section. This section is important because this is where you can set the alert and return to work thresholds that will be used by all the users assigned this loadout. As you can see, there are two tabs: Use Custom Thresholds and Use ACGIH Thresholds. You can select either tab to create custom thresholds or use the ACGIH thresholds. At SlateSafety, we've partnered with the ACGIH, the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists, to take their physiological monitoring guidelines and digitize them. If you're familiar with ACGIH and its thresholds, you can easily select the ACGIH loadouts and apply it to your users. On the other hand, if you'd rather create your own thresholds, then you can do that in the Custom Thresholds tab. Now, for the tutorial, we'll create a custom biometric alert threshold. You may already have an idea of which thresholds you'd like. You can create them here by selecting the green New Alert Threshold button. Now you can see that a new row was added to our biometric alert thresholds table. That row is a new threshold that we can either remove by clicking this button or that we can edit. To edit it, the drop-down here allows you to select which metric you'd like to set. We'll set ours to core temperature and set the threshold at 102 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes. That will mean that anytime a user with this loadout's temperature is greater than 102 for 5 minutes, an alert is triggered. When an alert threshold is exceeded, the band v2 triggers an alert notification. That alert notification is visible in real time in 3 different ways. On the user wearing the band will vibrate. For anyone inside the SlateSafety platform, a notification will pop up in the top right corner. And for anyone who is signed up for SMS alerts, they will receive a text message to their provided phone number. Now that we've created this alert threshold, the hope is if it's triggered, corrective action will take place for that individual. That could be them sitting down and taking a break, drinking some water, or resting in a shaded area, for example. After taking corrective action, the worker's core temperature would go down. Once that happens, you can have return to work notifications configured in this table here that will send an alert once the worker's core temperature has been below a particular threshold. This could inform the user that they are able to return to work. Similar to the alert, the return to work will notify the user wearing the bands via haptic feedback that they are cleared to return to work. It will also notify any admins or group leaders logged into this web application via a pop-up in the top right. And any SMS alert contacts will receive a text message directly to their phone. At the bottom of this loadout, we can choose different features to enable or disable. The two shown here are GPS and tap alert. If GPS is enabled, then any band worn by a user with this loadout will attempt to gather GPS data. One thing to note is that GPS data is typically only collected outside. Indoors, the bands are going to have a difficult time recording location data via GPS satellites. The other feature is tap alert, which, if enabled, can act as a panic button that users can trigger by double tapping and holding the top of their band v2 while it is being worn. More instructions on this can be found on our support page. Now that it's done, let's hit submit to create this new loadout. If we go back to the users tab now, we can assign this new loadout to Jane and as many users as we like. You can do this by selecting Jane and whoever else, and then clicking Batch Actions and Assign Loadout. Then you select the new loadout we created and hit Submit. Now you can see that Jane has our new loadout. Now, moving on to the Bands tab. On the Bands tab, you can see which of your bands are unassigned or which users they are assigned to. You can also edit the assignment here. In the state column, you can see if the band is on body, on charger, or idle. This band table is also useful because you can find the last reported battery percentage of each band, as well as its last reported use. The sync column lets you know if the band is up to date with its current assigned loadout and assigned user. If you just change the user assigned to a band, then that band will show up as pending here in the sync column, and that informs you that the band has not finished updating to the new user that you just assigned to it. Once it has completed that update to the new user, it will show up as complete with a green check mark here. If the bands are within cell or gateway range, then they will complete their synchronization pretty quickly, typically under 2 minutes. You'll see a sync is pending for a user if we just recently changed their loadout. In the next minute or so, the sync pending will change so we'll know it's complete. The Contact tab is where you can create contacts to receive text-based notifications straight to their phone. Select the green Contact button on the right to open the Create Contact form. To fill out the form, we will need to enter the name and phone number of the contact. With the Notifications filter, you also have the option to set filters to limit the type of notifications that the contact receives. For example, you can have the contact receive all notifications or just high severity alerts. The contact will receive all notifications by default if left empty. For the group filter, you can select particular groups you'd like to get notifications for. For example, if we are assigning Jane Smith as a contact, then we will limit her to only receive notifications from our sample group. The Settings tab is where admins can view organization-wide settings. The first table here describes how different events notify the wearer of the band. You can see that high severity alerts correspond to red and cause 4 haptic pulses on the wearer when triggered. Low severity alerts correspond to yellow and cause 3 haptic pulses on the wearer when triggered. And return to works correspond with a green color and cause 2 haptic pulses on the wearer when triggered. Below the band feedback section, you can adjust intensity levels in the Intensity Levels table. These color settings are associated with the charts and diagrams across the app. You can adjust what you'd want to appear as moderate intensity or yellow, or high intensity, aka red, on these charts by adjusting the metrics below. Once changes are made and saved, they will appear on the charts and diagrams across your organization. That completes our overview of the organization section of the web application. Next, we'll take a closer look at the live page. We are currently looking at the live page on the Grid tab. There are 2 other tabs at the bottom to view, but we'll start with Grid. All tabs on the live page are different interfaces for viewing real-time data. The Grid tab's specialty is showing the real-time stoplight status of each wearer that is currently wearing a band and transmitting data. The Grid tab can have thousands of users and will sort the users that have recently triggered alerts or have the highest heart rate, core temp, or exertion values to the top. We're currently looking at everyone sorted by the number of alerts in our selected metric, which is heart rate. As you can see on the top left, we can quickly select to view them by group or by channel. And on the top right, you can also filter by a certain group or individual or both. Each card has information about the user's band ID, battery percentage, exertion level, core temperature, heart rate, and HRLV. The cards will be different colors depending on your organization's intensity levels set on the organization page. If you click on a user's card, you can pop up a more detailed view of them. This pop-up shows a 5-minute chart of whichever metric you have selected that has a live stream of data points and any notifications. You can also see here that the chart will show alert thresholds for the user and how close they are to surpassing them. Clicking on a user's chart is just one way to view notifications. To view all notifications, select the bell icon in the top right-hand corner and you'll see any notifications and alerts that have come through in the last 12 hours. The next tab to explore on the live page is the Chart tab. On the Chart tab, you can see our current users' cards stacked in a column next to a real-time chart. The chart shows the last 5 minutes for the top 10 users sorted automatically by the number of recently triggered notifications and then by the selected metric. The chart is a great view for seeing real-time trends among your most exerted users. Many customers use it to tell when users are breaking away from the pack and close to exceeding alert thresholds. You can view different metrics by selecting them at the top, as well as filter to particular channels, groups, or users in the top right. The last tab on the live page is the Map tab. If GPS is enabled in the user's loadout and they are wearing their bands and outside, the Map tab will display where they are now, along with their stoplight status of red, yellow, or green for the selected metric. This can be extremely valuable for supervisors that need to find the location of a worker across a large job site. For example, you can zoom in on the map and change to satellite mode to help you find a precise location. Now that we've covered the live page, let's take a look at the history page. On the history page, you can see the history of collected data across each day. You can click on the date in the top left to select a different day to view. This will drop down a calendar in which you can select which day you want to show. Each day that has data will show up orange. Once you have a day selected, you can see a chart below that displays the data and any notifications. You can zoom in on the chart to see a shorter, more specific period of time, or zoom out to view the entire day. You can also see the data that's coming in now, and the grayed out section will be for future data points. You can see at the top, similar to the live page, you can toggle between different metrics you'd like to view, and the chart will update immediately. And also, just like the live page, you can filter different groups and users. You'll also see a map to show historical location data if you have GPS enabled. Below the chart and map, you'll see a table that gives a minimum, average, and maximum for each user, as well as a box and whisker plot, which allow you to quickly see the intensity range for each user for the selected day. To add or remove users from the chart or map, you can select or unselect users' checkboxes in this table. Overall, the history page is a great way to look back in detail on the alerts and risks that were encountered each day. If you want to download data, you can do that on the Exports page. You can select New Export on the right to open a form to request a data download. Let's do an example here by downloading all the data we've collected so far for November. I'll give the download a name that'll help me remember what it is later on. Because I want all data, I will skip the options here to limit it to certain groups or users. For the start date, I will put November 1st, and for the end date, I will leave it as is. Because I want all the data, I will also leave biometrics, GPS, notifications all selected. The downsampling option here allows you to compress the data to every minute or leave it as uncompressed raw data. If you choose to downsample to 1 minute here, then you'll have a smaller file which, depending on your use for the downloaded file, could be preferable. Lastly, you can select whether you want the file in CSV or Excel format. Once ready, hit submit and it will submit your request. If you have a very large amount of data to download, then it could take several minutes to complete your request, in which case it will stay pending here in the table. Because my request was relatively small, it's already done and I can hit download to receive my file immediately. Thank you for viewing our SlateSafety Web Application tutorial. As always, we will continue to add new features which will be announced in our monthly software update emails. Thank you.